Dear children, today we will start lesson 3 in our history book. The name of the lesson is the Delhi Sultanate. So, as it is shown in this page in the beginning, the Delhi Sultanate ruled from 1200 AD to 1600 AD, and during this time period, different dynasties ruled over India, Delhi. These dynasties were Slave Dynasty, Khalji Dynasty, Tughlaq Dynasty, Sayyid Dynasty, Lodi Dynasty, and this was after that then Mughal rule was established. So now we will start with the reading of the chapter. The victory of Muhammad Ghori in the second battle of Tarayan. Battle of Tarayan. There were two battles fought in Tarayan. One was fought in 1191. These both battles were fought between Muhammad Ghori and Prithviraj Chauhan. First battle was fought in 1191, and in that battle Muhammad Ghori was defeated by Prithviraj Chauhan. Again in next year Muhammad Ghori attacked and then he won. So victory of Muhammad Ghori in the second battle of Tarayan, that is 1192 AD, cleared the way for the establishment of the Turkish rule in India. So this way Turkish rule started in India. Rajput Confederacy fell and because Prithviraj Chauhan was defeated, and here began a new phase in the medieval Indian history. Muhammad Ghori did not invade India only to plunder. He wanted to establish his empire here. However, he died. How he died? Muhammad Ghori, while suppressing a rebellion of Khokhars in Punjab, leaving his conquest in the charge of his generals. Then his generals took upon the charge. As it turned out, Qutbuddin Aibak, who was one of Ghori's trusted generals, he became the master of Ghori's Indian conquest. The Delhi Sultanate, founded by him, including all the major territories of North India up to Lakhnauti in Bengal. Now here the interesting information is given. In medieval times, even the offspring was not trusted in case he became over ambitious. Means the rulers, they did not trust upon their own kids, son, because they were feared that they will become over ambitious and took up the throne. In these circumstances, the kings often bought promising young boys and raised and trained them into extremely loyal military generals to secure their own stability. The early Turkish Sultan of Delhi are generally called Mamluks, means Mamluks means slaves. All of them were Ivory Turks and were freed from the position of slavery much before they became sultans. After Mamluks, who ruled Khaljis, Tughlaqs, Sayyids, Lodis, the last Lodi ruler, Ibrahim Lodi, he was defeated by Babur, which led to the end of Delhi Sultanate, and after that Mughals ruled over India. Sources for the study of Sultanate period. So what are the sources which tell us about Sultanate period? The art of history writing developed like never before during the later medieval period in India. Means we have sources, written sources about to know about our history. This art started in later medieval period in India. A large number of books were written by the court chroniclers and travelers. They both from the Muslim and European regions during this period. So we have both the architectural sources like monuments, inscriptions, and coins issued by a series of rulers, as well as abundant written materials for the study of medieval Indian history. So, which sources help us to study the medieval Indian history? Monuments, inscriptions, and coins. Some of the most important books which give us detailed information are as follows. Here are name of some of the books which help us to study about the Sultanate period. Kitabul Mulk by Al-Biruni, Tarikh-e-Firoz Shahi by Ziauddin Barani, Futuhat-e-Firoz Shahi by Sultan Firoz Shah Tughlaq, Rehla by Ibn Battuta, Tabaqat-e-Nasiri by Minhaj-us-Siraj, Miftah-ul-Futuh and Ashika by Amir Khusro. The expansion of the Delhi Sultanate. How the Delhi Sultanate expanded. The early sultans. Qutbuddin Aibak was a competent warrior and governed his sultanate well. After the ruthless military nature of the new sultanate is marked by the suppression of continuous revolts that kept Qutbuddin busy throughout the 13 years of his rule. The construction of Quwwat-ul-Islam Mosque and Qutub Minar in its campus by Qutbuddin Aibak marked the beginning of the Islamic architecture in India. How the Islamic architecture began in India? With the construction of Qutub Minar and Quwwat-ul-Islam Mosque. And Qutbuddin's adopted son, after the death of Qutbuddin, his adopted son Aram Shah succeeded him, but he was very weak and was removed by a more ambitious and strong contender, Iltutmish. He was the governor of Badaयूं and also a slave of Aibak. Iltutmish consolidated the rule of Ivory Turks in Sultanate. He looked after the law and order condition well and tried to improve it by appointing special officer for the suppression of offenders. He introduced military reforms and tried to strengthen his control not only on the local rulers but also on the members of varied Turkish nobility which found the rule of a Polo Turk unacceptable. So Iltutmish, while taking all the decision, Iltutmish consulted the Turkish nobles, which were called the group of 40 or Chahal Gani. Iltutmish's sons were incompetent. He nominated his daughter Razia as his successor. Iltutmish was a broad-minded. It is proved by the fact that though he had many sons, but he considered none of them worthy of the throne. So he decided to nominate his daughter Razia to the throne. Thus, the nomination of a daughter to a throne in preference to sons was a very bold and novel step. But the nobles did not support the accession of Razia as their sultan. They did not accept Razia as their sultan. So she faced many difficulties because she was a woman and also because she favored non-Turkish nobles. So soon a conspiracy was hatched against her and she was defeated and killed in a battle with the Turkish amirs. The next powerful sultan of Delhi, Ghiyasuddin Balban, he proved to be the real architect of the Sultanate. He crushed the rebellions in Bengal, Awadh and Sindh and also suppressed the highway robbers who had become a menace. And menace means danger or caused harm and had made travelling highly unsafe outside the cities. Khalji dynasty, Balban, he was succeeded by his grandson Kekubad, who was a weak ruler. He was killed by Jalaluddin Khalji, who ascended the throne in June 1290 AD and founded the Khalji dynasty. So Khalji dynasty came into emergence and Jalaluddin Khalji ascended the throne. But he was far too noble, and since he was kind-hearted, his ambitious nephew Alauddin Khalji killed him and became the next sultan of the Delhi Sultanate. Alauddin is known for his conquest and reforms. Alauddin established a vast empire, and during his reign the Delhi Sultanate expanded. He separated the issue of state from that of religion and did not tolerate any interference in the military and administrative decisions he took. He upgraded his army by introducing superior kind of arms and ammunition. He strengthened the administration and the army was trained to use new weapons. This helped to fight against the Mongols. He conquered almost the entire North India and South India. Then administration and consolidation under the Khaljis. How was the administration of Khaljis? Military strength was central, means they gave utmost importance to the military strength because it was main thing for them to the survival and sustenance of any state in the medieval period. Alauddin kept a large standing army at the center, and to keep it satisfied, he paid it in the cash. Therefore, his expenses on the army were enormous. He used to spend big amount on the army. In order to control the pressure on the treasury, Alauddin decided to control the market price, and some steps were taken by him in this regard. Separate markets were fixed up for articles like food grains, slaves, cattle, etc. For maintaining the price of food grains, the peasants in the neighborhood in Delhi were ordered to sell the products to the state government at prescribed rates. And crops obtained by the government in this manner were stored in the storehouses from where the shopkeepers could buy the required amount. So there was a storehouse in which the crops were stored and shopkeepers could buy the required amount and sell in the open markets at the fixed rate by the state. Weights and measures were checked regularly by the market officers so that shopkeepers could not cheat the innocent people. Strict vigilance was maintained in the market. All the people trading in the market had to register their names in the government offices. Revenue system and land control. Alauddin, apart from the control of the market, Alauddin took important steps in the field of land revenue administration. He decided that land revenue would be assessed on the basis of measuring the land under cultivation. This meant that rich and powerful in the village who had more land could not pass on their burden to the poor. The Sultan also kept a strict watch on the local officer responsible for revenue collection. Their accounts were strictly checked so that they could not cheat the state. The administrative policy of Alauddin Khalji show that apart from being a brilliant military general, he was an administrator of great efficiency. A case study, Tughlaqs. The successors of Alauddin proved to be unworthy of the huge responsibility of the Sultan of Delhi Sultanate. They were removed by the competent and powerful governor of Punjab, Ghazi Malik. Ghazi Malik, who assumed the title of Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq when he attained the crown, he was determined to annex means merge all those states which had earlier declared themselves independent. So the states which had declared themselves independent, Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, he decided, or he was determined to merge or annex all those states. However, he ruled only for 5 years, after which he died in an accident while he was being welcomed by his son Prince Juna after the conquest of Warangal, Bengal and Tirhut. Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq laid the foundation of a big palace fort, Tughlaqabad, near Delhi. Prince Juna, who is also known by the name Muhammad bin Tughlaq, succeeded his father to the throne of Delhi in 1325 AD. He had inherited a large empire from his father, but he also nurtured the dream of a still greater territorial control. He had vast financial resources and a strong military support to pursue or carry on his ambitions. In the early years of his rule, he planned and prepared for the conquest of Khorasan, but afterwards he gave up this project. However, the second phase of his reign, beginning 1335 AD, saw revolts in most of the far-flung areas of the empire and the gradual shrinking of the borders of the Delhi Sultanate. Muhammad bin Tughlaq's reforms. Muhammad bin Tughlaq was one of the most remarkable and interesting ruler of Tughlaq dynasty. He introduced some remarkable administrative measures which, although failed, were very distinct and exemplary in nature. His administrative reforms failed due to lapses in judgment and implementation. The most significant of his reforms were as follows: taxation in Doab. Doab means region between two rivers. Ab means water, Do means two. Second is transfer of capital. Third is introduction of token currency. So we will begin with the first reform, taxation in the Doab. The Sultan made an ill-advised financial experiment. So this experiment was not very good, considered very good, that he did in the Doab between Ganga and Yamuna. He not only increased the rate of taxation but also revived and created some additional cesses. Cesses are like tax only. Although the share of the state remained half as in the name of Alauddin, it was fixed arbitrarily and not on the basis of actual produce. Second reform was transfer of capital. Muhammad bin Tughlaq decided to shift his capital from Delhi to Devagiri, and he renamed it as Dolatabad, which is located in the Deccan region of India. And this plan was conceived by the emperor to rule from a strategic centrally located capital. He thought that it would be a good plan or good reform, but he failed. A highway was built between Delhi and Devagiri to enable a smooth transfer. Not only did he move his entire government, but he forced the entire population of Delhi to move to Daulatabad. But Devagiri was ill equipped to host the offices, and there were not the facilities. It was lacking in facilities wished by the generals. And since this happened in summer, many people died because of inadequate water supply arrangements in Daulatabad. And again the capital was shifted back to Delhi after 2 years. So population was greatly affected by this step, and many of the people died on the way due to poor travel arrangements. The third step taken by Muhammad bin Tughlaq was introduction of token currency. Muhammad bin Tughlaq was a well-read person and deeply interested in coinage. Inspired by the Chinese, he introduced token currency in India. He introduced token currency for the first time in India using brass or copper coins. So he introduced brass and copper coins backed by silver and gold kept in the treasury. This was a novel idea which was much ahead of its time. Copper coins, however, the copper coins were easy to forge, and this led to massive losses in the royal office. The easily forgeable copper brass coinage turned every Hindu house into a mint. Means every house they started minting the copper coins, and soon Sultan withdrew forged currency by paying in bullion and gold. Thus it was a failure, and it is said there were heaps of copper coins lying around the royal office for years. His successful experiments made him quite unpopular with the people and his contemporaries. Poor administration in his empire led to internal aggression and revolts. Firoz Tughlaq. On Muhammad bin Tughlaq's death due to bad health, his cousin Firoz Tughlaq was elected to the throne in 1351 AD. Firoz Tughlaq followed the policy of pacification towards ulemas, amirs, and even the people and Sufi saints. The military establishment under him became weak and he had to face many reverses. When Firoz Tughlaq died in 1388 AD, he had already lost Bengal, Jajnagar, Nagarkot and Thata. His autobiography, Futuhat-e-Firoz Shahi, tells about his apprehension about future confusion and disorder in the Sultanate. The days of expansions were over now. So despite his weaknesses, Firoz Shah was a ruler with an open outlook. He undertook a number of measures for the welfare of the people also. Some of his public works can be mentioned as follows. He got canals constructed, 5 in all, for the irrigation of agricultural lands. The water was brought to Hisar, Hansi and Firozabad from Yamuna, Satluj and Ghaggar. Foundation and development of various cities. He founded and developed many cities like Hisar, Firozpur, Firozabad and Fatehbad. Firozabad near Delhi was his favorite, remains of which can be seen in the area Kotla Firoz Shah. Establishment of Diwan-e-Khairat, which cared for the orphans and widows and arranged marriages of poor Muslim girls. Construction of various madrasas, colleges, hospitals, sarais, karwas, sarais, public wells, etc. The Sultanate in the 15th and 16th centuries. After the death of Firoz Shah Tughlaq, there was civil war in 1398 AD. The Turkish conqueror invaded Hindustan. Invaded means attacked Hindustan to take advantage of the widespread anarchy and captured several areas. He killed thousands and plundered Delhi and other cities. After he returned, the Delhi Sultanate was ruled by Sayyids and Lodhis from 1414 to 1526 AD. The geographical boundaries of the Sultanate had shrunk drastically. By now, in 1526 AD, Babur, who was the descendant of Timur, came to reclaim the Timurid possessions in Punjab and finally succeeded in defeating the last Lodi ruler of Delhi Sultanate, Ibrahim Lodi. So Babur, he defeated the last Lodi ruler of Delhi Sultanate, Ibrahim Lodi. This was the end of Sultanate, which gave way to the Mughal power in India. So, Delhi Sultanate was headed by a sultan who was the most important person of the empire. So, Delhi Sultanate ruled over India from 1200 AD to 1600 AD. So, this is all about today's discussion. We conclude this chapter here only. Thank you.